Breaking news from the European Aviation Safety Agency in Cologne. It is 3:45 p.m. December 1st, 2025. Director Henrik Andersen is looking at a catastrophe. 47 major European airports are flashing red with emergency alerts, all reporting volcanic ash, and it is all coming from one spot. Mount Etna has just blown its top, sending a massive plume into the jet stream and turning the wind into a weapon loaded with engine-shredding glass. Andersen isn't wasting a second. He is ordering an immediate lockdown of every single flight corridor across the continent. The warning is stark: do not fly. Ash concentrations in 6 different altitude zones are high enough to destroy aircraft instantly. What Andersen is managing right now is unprecedented. The first time in history we have seen a volcano effectively launch a coordinated attack on European aviation. This is not just a local problem for the island of Sicily anymore. Etna has pumped lethal particles right into the high altitude winds, spreading volcanic glass exactly where commercial airliners cruise. The mechanics are terrifying. The eruption column shot 9 miles into the sky, catching jet streams moving at over 120 miles per hour. It is distributing that deadly grit with mathematical precision, sweeping from Rome to Stockholm like clockwork. Capitals across Europe are grounding their fleets simultaneously as sensors pick up density levels that will absolutely kill jet engines. We are looking at readings of 15 to 20 milligrams of volcanic glass in every cubic meter of air. That is a death sentence for a plane. If you fly through that, your engines will melt and fail within 5 to 10 minutes. Analysts say this isn't a fluke. Etna has settled into a violent rhythm, rocking the continent with a massive explosion every 48 to 72 hours. Each blast pumps out ash for 6 to 8 hours, choking the skies for up to 4 days. It is a geological cycle perfectly timed to cripple travel during peak hours. The financial fallout is devastating, with models projecting losses of $2.8 billion every 24 hours, leaving 450 million annual passengers stranded as the grid totally paralyzes. Trains and buses can't handle the overflow, and taking a risk isn't an option. The data confirms engines will be destroyed. There is zero margin for error when volcanic glass levels spike 700 to 1000% above safety limits. This doesn't just make flying dangerous, it makes it impossible. We are talking about a total airspace shutdown, not just a few detours. The old emergency playbooks are useless. They were written for one-off events, not a recurring bombardment that turns safe skies into kill zones 3 times a week. But here is the nightmare scenario regarding Mount Etna. If it can hit 47 airports at once with ash levels 10 times higher than the lethal limit. How does a continent survive when the sky shuts down every 2 days? How do you keep society moving when one volcano in Sicily can weaponize the wind and hold 450 million travelers hostage with clouds of engine-killing dust? Mount Etna is Europe's most volatile beast, with a violent rap sheet stretching back 3,500 years. Sitting on the collision line of the African and Eurasian plates, this 10,000-foot monster looms over Sicily with 4 active craters: Voragine, Bocca Nuova, the northeast and southeast craters. 135 major blowouts have made this mountain a symbol of terror for millennia. Even the ancient Greeks and Romans wrote about it, describing black skies stretching all the way to the mainland and North Africa. Usually, the mountain follows a script. You get minor fireworks, lava fountains, and gas puffs that are basically just the volcano breathing. Or you get the slow burns oozing lava flows that last for months and casually redraw the map. But the real danger comes from the paroxysms, violent 6 to 12 hour tantrums that shoot massive columns of debris into the stratosphere. Historically, that mess stayed local. It usually only choked out eastern Sicily, maybe a radius of 30 to 60 miles. Locals are used to the rhythm, expecting more action in the winter when groundwater hits the magma. For planes, it was usually just a headache for Catania Airport or a few regional delays. Nothing global. But putting jet engines near volcanic plumes has always been a game of Russian roulette on a global scale. The industry almost learned the hard way in 1982 when British Airways Flight 9 flew into a cloud over Indonesia and lost all 4 engines. Then came 2010. Iceland's volcano grounded 100,000 flights and incinerated an estimated 1.7 billion euros. But the real villain here is the composition of the ash itself. It is tiny shards of silicate glass that melt at around 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, a temperature jet engines exceed just to operate. So when that ash gets sucked in, it turns back into molten lava instantly, coating the inside of the engine and choking off the airflow. It glazes over the turbine blades, and you go from cruising to gliding in minutes. After Iceland, Europe scrambled to write new safety rules, but they made one fatal assumption that these eruptions would be rare, isolated incidents. Usually, Etna's tantrums are just a local headache for eastern Sicily, sending a bit of ash drifting harmlessly over the Mediterranean. Sure, flight delays hurt the local tourist traps, but it was never a full-blown continental meltdown. But what's happening right now at the summit, it signals a terrifying change in the game. The volcano isn't playing by the old rules of geography anymore. It's tapped directly into the invisible superhighways of the sky. We're talking about the jet streams, high-altitude currents screaming between 150 and 300 kilometers per hour, 9 to 12 kilometers up. Modern aviation lives and dies by these winds. Airliners ride them like free escalators to save fuel and cut time across continents. But that same efficiency hack just turned into a nightmare scenario, transforming a regional annoyance into a Europe-wide catastrophe. It all kicked off on December 1st, 2025. Out of the chaotic violence of Etna's latest explosion, a freakishly precise pattern started to show. Red alerts slammed into the European Aviation Safety Agency, and Director Henrik Andersen realized this wasn't just another bad day at the office. This was uncharted territory. The numbers were insane. 47 airports from Rome to London to Stockholm went dark simultaneously. Real-time tracking exposed the culprit, a sniper-like series of ash columns, injected perfectly to hit peak jet stream speeds at 15 kilometers upright in the heart of commercial flight paths. The mathematical perfection of the spread was impossible for a natural disaster. It defied all chaos theory. Every pulse lasted 6 to 8 hours, time to catch the northeasterly flow and pump volcanic glass levels 1000% over the safety limit. We're talking total paralysis. Flights grounded, thousands of passengers stranded, and Europe's capitals turned into no-fly zones instantly. As the situation spiraled, the grim truth hit home. Etna had shifted from sporadic outbursts to a terrifying new regime. These massive blasts were hitting every 48 to 72 hours, spewing out triple the historical amount of ash. Every single eruption cycle synchronized perfectly with rush hour in the skies, triggering a domino effect that crushed the transport grid. The statistics are absolutely horrifying. 2,000 planes grounded per blast, 450 million passengers in limbo, and 2.8 billion euros incinerated daily. Europe's backup plans fell apart immediately. Trains and buses were already packed, and they snapped under the weight of the stranded crowds. Highways turned into parking lots. Rail lines choked the continent's arteries were completely blocked. While Europe panicked, the scientists crunching the numbers found something even more disturbing. Volcanologists modeling the data stared at their screens in disbelief and came to a chilling conclusion. The consistency of the 15-kilometer ejection height and the perfect timing with the jet stream didn't look natural. It looked like a target list. It was as if the volcano was launching a coordinated attack on modern aviation, hitting the major corridors with malevolent precision. Aviation authorities are used to weather delays, not a systematic assault, and they were caught completely off guard. The old playbooks for dodging ash clouds, useless against a continent-wide siege. Every closed runway and stranded traveler became just another statistic in a ruthless equation of destruction. Mount Etna wasn't just a postcard view anymore. It had morphed into a geological superweapon capable of bringing Europe to its knees. The vulnerability was shocking. Our addiction to air travel had become our biggest weakness. As the skies turned black, people started realizing this wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a survival crisis. How does a modern society keep running when one volcanic vent holds the whole continent hostage? How do you move food, people, and ideas when the sky itself has turned against you? For Director Andersen and his team, the evidence pointed to one terrifying reality. Etna's eruptions weren't just nature acting up, they felt like an act of war, the planet weaponizing its own fury against our infrastructure. Now we face the ultimate question: how do you fight an enemy that wields the power of the earth itself? As the scale of the devastation sinks in, government leaders are hitting the panic button. Henrik Andersen didn't sugarcoat it in his latest press briefing. He stated flatly that Etna has systematically turned the jet streams into weapons against commercial flights. The International Air Transport Association is backing him up, triggering emergency protocols for a threat they never saw coming. Plane manufacturers are terrified. They've confirmed that flying through this soup guarantees engine failure. Pilot unions are putting their foot down, demanding military-grade early warning systems before they even think about taking off. And now NATO is stepping in, realizing this is a massive blow to military readiness and they've initiated. We are looking at a total security shakeup, with experts finally admitting our flight networks are sitting ducks for a single volcanic vent. The scientific community is scrambling, and they have just handed down a bone-chilling confirmation of Etna's hostile agenda. After crunching the eruption numbers, the International Association of Volcanology dropped a bombshell. The volcano is deliberately aiming for our aviation infrastructure. Atmospheric experts using top-tier models have proven the jet stream is being weaponized, turning high-altitude winds into superhighways of destruction. Fresh satellite shots from the European Space Agency exposed the terrifying scale of this nightmare. Ash clouds that used to be local are now strangling the continent, turning airports into deserted wastelands. Research teams digging through the debris have confirmed our worst fears. This eruption is blasting out glass particles at levels way beyond what any aircraft engine can handle. We are talking lethal concentrations. But the real kicker is that Europe's disaster plans are totally useless against a systemic attack this massive. European aviation rules were written for small-time hiccups, assuming volcanoes would play nice and stay local. They are completely unprepared for one mountain shutting down the entire continent's sky for days on end. Emergency crews were already stretched thin. Now they are collapsing under the crushing weight of millions of displaced passengers. Forget the trains and highways, they are gridlocked, totally unable to handle the tidal wave of stranded travelers. We are watching the economy tank in real time, with losses spiraling into the billions with every fresh blast. With this catastrophe unfolding live, the marching orders are crystal clear. Mount Etna has gone from a tourist hotspot to a monster, posing an existential threat to modern society itself. Grounding a few thousand flights exposed a scary truth: our entire system is hanging by a thread. We need to wake up to the danger right now, because band-aid fixes and local patches aren't going to cut it. This demands an all-out mobilization of resources like we haven't seen since the darkest days of the 20th century. Europe has to face the fact that the open skies are gone. They are now a battleground in a new kind of war. We aren't fighting a rogue state or terrorists. The enemy is the Earth itself, striking with deadly precision. If one volcano in Sicily can bring us to our knees, imagine the carnage when peaks from Iceland to Indonesia join the fight. How do we keep civilization running when the air highways turn into death traps in a heartbeat? That is the nightmare keeping European leaders up at night as they deal with the fallout from Etna's assault. The calls they make in the next few weeks are going to send shockwaves through history. They will decide the future of humanity as we face a reality where nature itself is a weapon of mass destruction. For anyone thinking this is just a glitch, the scientists are shouting from the rooftops, this is real. This isn't a fluke. It is the dawn of a dark new era where the planet turns against us. We have to act now before those black clouds become a permanent scar on our sky. Smash that subscribe button on Earth Attacks today to stay on top of the volcanic war targeting our planes. We are your exclusive source for the inside scoop on how geology is being weaponized against the modern world. Don't wait until you are stranded with millions of others. Join the Earth Attacks community right now and face the terrifying truth. Beat the ash cloud and get prepped for a new age of geological warfare that the government is powerless to stop. Earth Attacks, your essential survival guide for the dark, volcanic days ahead.